What about what Ali had to endure in order to win championships? In order to be...
I'm going through the same thing in today's time. What are you talking about?
How is what you're going through, how does that equate? Explain, because I'm just curious. How does that equate? So Ali, refusing to enter, to go into the Vietnam War, to represent this country in the armed services, to being ostracized throughout this country, you understand, because of it. In those times,
so you're gonna say,
in the immediate aftermath of the civil rights era, how does that compare?
So Mayweather don't deal with screw.
Oh, I think you do. I'm just talking about comparing it to that time.
I don't deal with racism every day. You don't think I deal with racism every day? Floyd, you don't think I go through this every day? Me?
I think you go through it. But what I'm saying is that we do live in a different time. That's all I mean by that. We do live in a different time.
And guess what? It's easier to get to. Guess what? It's different because you know why? Everyone sees it now. Back then, only a certain few can see it. Now the world sees it. Now the world sees whatever goes out. Whatever anybody write, anybody say, the world sees it.
All right, Floyd Mayweather on racism. Stephen A., help me out here. He didn't really say what he actually endures. Your take on his thoughts on how he deals with racism, as does Ali.
Regardless of what Floyd chooses to or fails to elaborate on when he's talking about racism, Skip, obviously when we think about what Ali went through, we lived in a different time.
Sure.
Obviously, he was somebody that refused to enter the Vietnam War, and you know what the residue of that impact was. But what Floyd is talking about is two-part. Number one, there was a large segment of the black populace that sided with Ali because back in those days, even more so than today, in terms of black empowerment, in terms of the blight that existed within the black community, highlighting the overt racism that existed in our country. Ali was unapologetic about speaking to those things, and things were far more overt and far less subtle than it is today. But what Floyd is saying is that, oh, trust me, no matter how subtle it exists, no matter how much money I make, no matter how much success I've achieved, make no mistake about it, there are people out there. I experienced it to this day myself. Now, you might have people that look at him and they look at how he flosses, like you pointed out, how he throws his money around. And a lot of it, undoubtedly, he brings on himself. There's just no question about it. And then you have the situation with women, and obviously that's been well documented. And because of that, you have that segment of our population that feels the way that they feel about it, okay? But what he's also saying is this. Even with all of that taken into consideration, think about what he has been able to accomplish as a black man in terms of owning his own brand, being his own boss, employing other individuals, making more money than anybody has in the history of the sport, being worth what he's worth. In that piece, he also alludes to how many athletes come up to him for his advice on how he was able to do it because they aspire to be in control of themselves the way that he is in terms of controlling your own destiny because you're the boss. You see what I'm saying? And he says, you don't think that I experienced some level of racism because of that? Absolutely. And in that regard, I definitely can stomach that. That's not to eradicate or omit what Floyd brings on himself, because it's undoubtedly so. And if Floyd tries to deny it, it's kind of foolish, because that's what has led to him making the money that he was making. If he was mild-mannered, quiet, didn't floss, didn't create this aura about himself that people either loved or loved to hate, then Floyd wouldn't be worth what he is today, because he wouldn't have been able to generate what he's been able to generate monetarily as a boxer. But there is no doubt, Skip, in you pointing as fair-minded as you have been in terms of all the things that have existed in the black community, what you've witnessed, what you know as a black woman, we have to go through as black people. What I know as a black man, what we have to go through as black people. There is no question that there is a healthy level of animosity for Floyd Mayweather. Outside of all of those things, there's a healthy level of animosity that comes his way simply because he is a black man who has accomplished what he has accomplished, and you can't tell him what to do, and you can't control him. And that's what he's talking about.
Yeah. By the way, his other line to you was, I'm an employer. Pacquiao is an employee.
Yes, he says that all the time.
I know. But that frames it for me. Okay, now back to this case in point. Do I have any idea as a white man what it feels like to walk in this young man's, this 38-year-old young man's shoes? I have no idea. Does he feel racism on a daily basis? I have no doubt that he does. And if he does, if he perceives it to be racism, Fine, good by me. Do you feel even subtle racism on a daily basis?
Every day.
I'm sure you do. Do you feel subtle
day.
racism,
Every
or
day.
I'm doing even subtle? Yes, maybe more overt instead of covert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But some
sometimes.
people
Yes.
bring it on themselves more than others because of their behavior.
Okay,
and
fine.
they confuse it with racism.
Get it?
Yes.
Respect it?
Sure.
Okay. Now, again, I'm such an Ali fan that I get offended by this because I don't know exactly what Muhammad Ali went through in his days as Cassius Clay in Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know exactly, but I do know, as you point out, that he was a conscientious objector, that he took a stand. He used his star power. He risked his star power to take a stand for racism and against the Vietnam War. And he missed 3.5 of the most prime years of your career you could miss. From age 25 through almost to 28. He did not box because he was taking a stand. Man. At the time, a lot of people hated him for that, and he changed his name from obviously Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali, made him an even bigger target to some people in white America. It's both the race and the religion come into play, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this man took an incredibly courageous stand that he got little to no credit from much of America for during these years. Then he fought all the way to the Supreme Court, 1971. He wins his case in Supreme Court. He comes back and becomes once again an extremely successful, we both agree, the greatest boxer ever. Okay, how can Floyd dare, how can he dare to compare what he's going through as he's driving his Bentley talking to you with what this man went through? It just seems disrespectful, and it seems like that you two would be a little offended by it, just a little bit, right?
Well,
is that
no,
fair?
No, you don't.
No, I'm not going to say I'm offended by it. I disagree with him.
Okay.
I don't feel the way that he feels, but I'm not him, and I don't have to deal with what he's had to deal with. And I'm going to keep reminding you of a very important point. Boxers, by and large, represent themselves. They don't have any representation. Let's also take into account the fact that he's a fighter. So he's somebody that hasn't been educated in the world of political correctness and things you feel and don't feel, things you should say and you don't say. Let's keep that in mind. Let's also keep in mind something very important that we don't bring out enough. You have some people, while they love Ali, they're also, some folks actually get upset because as great as Ali was and as special as he is and remains to be, let's not gloss over the fact that the deity, the godlike figure that Ali has elevated to, it's basically once the Parkinson's has kicked in, and you have a lot of people coming forward, and they're putting him out there front and center. You have a lot of people.
More of a sympathetic figure?
I don't want to say sympathetic because for us, we appreciate him because of the sacrifices that he was willing to make. But you do have people within the black community who are resentful of the fact that white America is so eager to embrace him and put him front and center now that he has Parkinson's. But when he was knocking cats out and when he was doing what he was doing, when he went on the record and said, no Viet Cong ever called me the N-word, okay? That was a source of hatred that people used to throw in his direction. But now that I don't want to use the word helpless, I know Layla Ali. She's a friend of mine. She's a wonderful woman. The Ali family are wonderful people. And Ali, to me, is the greatest. But you do have people within the black community. They hate the fact that at every turn, it seems like other segments of our population, not just in America, but globally, are willing to put him front and center now that he has Parkinson's. But when he wasn't suffering from that, okay, and he didn't need assistance and all of this other stuff. Oh, no. He was a source of resentment then. And it was one community who was standing up. And I'm not trying to say there were people outside the black community that didn't help Ali, because there were a lot of white folks that helped Ali too, to be fair. But by and large, he had the support of black America. And now that that stuff is over, everybody else wants to stand up and act like they loved him all along. And Floyd is saying, nah. You understand what I'm saying? I've been hated, but look at what he sacrificed. Is that what it takes to be as great as he is? It shouldn't require that.
Okay.
Floyd has a point there.
So
That point, he has a point.
You do disagree that
course.
there is no way in the world he can compare what Ali went through.
No. And I've said that to Floyd on several occasions. You can't
There's
compare
no
what you went
comparison.
through. But what he's talking about, you're not around to see how I'm treated privately by folks I run into and the things that they say and the way that they act towards me.
Some of it brought on by himself, as you mentioned.
Okay, last quick point. I can't speak for the rest of the white community, but I can speak for this white guy. I was cheering Ali in 67, 68, 69 when he boxed, and I was applauding the stances
You
he took.
also have been on the
different.
record to say that you felt in the minority at that time.
Everybody wasn't like you.
I'm not sure of that, but
That's how you
know
felt.
that. I'm pretty sure you're right about that.